Hi, everybody. We will be starting now. Thank you for your patience. I was just having a little trouble. But if we're all here and ready to go, are we all good on our people end? Okay, we will take it off.
All right, hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan Update Task Force meeting. Today is Thursday, October 26th, 2023. I'd like to run through our agenda. Before we do that, though, we'd like the first thing on the agenda was really call us into order. My name is Ramsey Tom. I'm with PBR Hawaii and will be facilitating this morning's meeting. Second. First thing on the item is basically our task force member roll call and introductions. What we'd like to do as part of the task force meeting is as we do the roll call, we ask all task force members to please put your cameras on. As part of our protocol requirement. Additionally, as we call out your name, acknowledging your presence, but if there is anyone else that is in attendance with you, please state who that might be and introduce them on the call. All right, so item on task force agenda, or excuse me, roster. Ahmad Sadri.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and it's just me here in the room.
Thank you, Ahmad. Welcome. Allison Fraley.
She will not be attending today. Kiolaki for Solid Waste, County of Kauai.
Hello. Dominic Henriquez. Dominic, are you present? If not. All right. Glenn, hi. Thanks, Glenn. Glenn's present in the room. Joe Hernandez. Christine Kubat. Lisa Kahoy. Nicole Chatterson, Zero Waste Oahu. Go.
Good morning. I'm here. Hello. Aloha.
Okay, thank you. Ramsey Mansour, County of Hawaii. No? All right. Robert Schmidt, County of Maui.
That's what I was able to do last time.
Aloha, I'm here alone in my office.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome. And Wayne Tanaka, Sierra Club. Okay, that would be the roll call for our task force roster. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you very much. At this point, I ask the State Department of Hawaiian Health, please introduce your team.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Lane Otsu, Office of Solid Waste Management.
Anyone else here?
Introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. Kimberly Tamal, Environmental Health Specialist for the Judicial Department.
Yeah, thank you.
Michael Burke, formerly with the Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch, sitting in for a little bit today.
Planner for DDC. And Reagan Jimenez, planner for Solid Waste.
Thank you. Anyone?
Nope, that's it.
Great, thank you. And ask our consultants, please. Suzanne.
Good morning, everyone. Cesar Leon, Solid Waste Planner. I'm also the project manager on the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan update. Here with me is Sela.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Gisela Herrera, Solid Waste Planner with Tetra Tech, supporting with the development of the update for the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan.
Great, thank you.
And we have PBR.
From PBR Online, Katie?
Aloha, my name is Katie Cullison. I'm a planner with PBR Hawaii. I'll be monitoring the chat through the course of this meeting. And if you're having any technical difficulties, you can also reach out to me and I'll do my best to troubleshoot for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie.
Sunny Rosari.
Who's that?
Then I got Ramsey Tom. I'm also with PBR Hawaii Sustainable Planner and will be facilitating the meeting. Also joining us today is our guest speaker, and
It's okay.
please introduce yourself.
I'm Kerry Telfer, president of Reynolds Recycling.
Aloha, thank you for being here. Wonderful. So with our agenda, we just want to run through that quickly with you. So we just did our roll call. We're also going to have a general public comment period. This is particularly if there's anyone from the general public attending in person and or online. If you are not going to be able to stay with us through the duration of today's meeting, this would be the opportunity for you to make and place a comment. This will not be in discussion, but it will be included and integrated in the particular portion of the meeting where that would be. We ask that you maintain your keep your comments relevant to the particular topics of the meeting today. So we'll be doing that shortly. We will also have the plan update in the purpose, followed by the wrap up of our previous meeting, lithium ion batteries. We will then go into the introduction of the problem statement for the next topic for the day, with the discussion of potential solutions to follow. We'll take a break, followed by an analysis, a comparative analysis by the team, and an opportunity would then present itself for additional public comment on that particular section. A discussion will follow, and we will have a meeting summary and the next steps discussion to round out today's agenda. So that's what we're looking at for the agenda. So at this point, mind that we're operating under Sunshine Law. With that intention, the law is Hawaii's open meeting law. The purpose is to help ensure the public can meaningfully participate in the government process, such as this particular plan revision. All task force meetings are open to the public and will follow the state's Sunshine Law. Note to the task force members, a discussion on task force business outside the public meeting is prohibited. This includes in-person communications, as well as phone, email, and social media communications. All right, again, that's a recap of the law under which these meetings are being held. The ground rules for our meetings are pretty straightforward. We like to basically say it's all about the law. But acknowledging the contributions of others, please raise your hand. Those of you online, there is an ability to do that. So just indicate if you'd like to speak. Please maintain your microphones off until or unless you're speaking. Engage everyone here in the meeting with courtesy, but also with an open mind. Listen, then respond, if you could, and to respect others and their ideas. Again, all of those things, if we apply the rules of Aloha, I think we'll be fine. Thank you. So the purpose of the task force and plan update is really to state the laws. Does that mean?
No, next slide.
Okay. Public comments. This is a component. If any of you from the public are attending and are not going to be able to spend the rest of the morning with us, this will be an opportunity for you to speak primarily on the agenda. So this is an opportunity to comment on the agenda, how it was set up. If there's any questions about the agenda, or any other comments at this point in time, this would be the opportunity to place them. Once again, there's no discussion, particularly on any of the comments. Anyone from the public online that would like to offer thoughts at this time? All right, no comments? We can move on to the next one.
Hopefully,
So Lane?
No, just a quick note. I just wanted to note, I think I see Christine logged into the meeting, and I think it might be some, like a Hawaii County rep, possibly Chris Chinchans, I think. So,
So Christine, have you joined the meeting? Please unmute. Can you say Ramsey also joined me?
I got an email that, Ramsey wasn't gonna be attending, but,
No,
Chris-
I'm sorry. I just signed in. I was a bit late.
Thanks for joining us.
thank you,
We'll just
Ramsey.
add that to,
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
right, and we'll try to catch you as you come on. I'm not seeing the screen quite properly.
Yeah.
and then we do see a hand up.
Yeah,
Does that
sorry,
mean-
Yes.
County of Kauai, Keola speaking again. Just wanted to note that we do have another member from County of Kauai, Andy Boyd should be on this call too. He's in a different room, so I just wanted to mention that he's here as well.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Once again, we're on public comments. The purpose of this again is to provide anyone with the opportunity to speak about the agenda specifically. And if you have a comment that you'd like to present as a result of not being able to be with us for the duration of our meeting today. Hearing no comments, seeing no hands raised, I think we can move to the next slide. please.
Sounds good.
Right now, we're going to discuss the purpose of task force and the plan update. Once again, a reminder, the state law mandates an integrated solid waste management plan. With regular updates and convening of this task force, HRS chapter 342G, the purpose again is to revise and update material contained in the previous plan. With comment from the task force, address other issues of statewide concern and regarding integrated solid waste management. So that's the bullet points under that particular statement or purpose. The expectation of the task force regarding potential solid waste solutions is what we'll be discussing and fundamentally coming up with recommendations from the task force. So this is why we're gathering today. I'll continue. Next, please. Specifically, the state identified 10 solid waste stream topics for inclusion in any of updates of the statewide ISWMP, including the following: tires, batteries, PV panels, organics, C&D waste, packaging, carpets, mattresses, as well as discussing the statewide recycling programs. Information received from the task force meetings for each solid waste stream will be used to update the existing management plan. A reminder that much of this is also about collecting information, and not everything is available at this time, but we will have reports. So the purpose of this is to collect information and provide the update. Next slide, please. So at this time, we would like to recap potential solution wrap up from our last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramsey. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for being here today. So similar to what occurred at our last task force meeting for lithium-ion batteries on July 27th, we wanted to take some time to wrap up discussions that we had at our previous task force meeting. As such, these next few slides will cover potential solutions discussed for consideration in the management of lithium-ion batteries in Hawaii. So we evaluated potential solutions using US EPA's waste hierarchy, as you see here on the screen. There are many strategies to reduce waste. US EPA has categorized and prioritized these strategies by most effective to least effective. Starting with the most effective, which would be to reduce waste. There are several ways to reduce waste, including the mindful consumption of resources. Next on the hierarchy, we have reuse, which slows the process of taking and disposing. We can reuse materials that were meant to be disposed and give them a second life. Recycling materials also keeps valuable products in the materials economy, reduces pollution, conserves natural resources, and also creates jobs. Additionally, energy can also be recovered from waste. And finally, the least desirable option would be to dispose of the material at a landfill. So in addition to the hierarchy, the state also identified 5 solutions, solution categories to consider, as you can see listed here. So these solution categories include extended producer responsibility, which assigns producers the responsibility for the end of life of products, as well as government programs and subsidies, outreach and education opportunities, for example, social media campaigning and the development of informational resources. And lastly, a resource reduction alternative. At the last meeting, we presented some, next slide. We presented some potential solutions to consider as you see listed here. So in California, the Responsible Battery Recycle Act of 2022, or AB 2440, will require producers to establish, fund, and operate stewardship programs for the collection and recycling of covered batteries and battery-embedded products no later than April of 2027. In Washington, Senate Bill 5144 will require producers of covered batteries and products contained in the batteries to participate in the state-approved battery stewardship plan. In New York, the New York State Rechargeable Battery Law requires manufacturers of covered rechargeable batteries who sell them in the state to fund the collection and recycling of these rechargeable batteries. Retailers that sell rechargeable batteries or batteries or products containing these batteries must also accept these batteries from state consumers. And additional solutions discussed as it relates to EPR included the collaboration with the National Stewardship Action Council, as well as the development of a local stewardship council here in Hawaii. For government programs and subsidies, we discussed grant opportunities in Maui County through their green grants and recycling grant programs. Additionally, in 2021, the County of Maui funded a research project to address lithium-ion battery recycling and disposal. And since conducting this research, the county recycling section has been developing a lithium-ion battery recycling program. And this is expected to be piloted in fiscal year 2024. And also, depending on the pilot outcomes, potentially this could become a county program in the following year in fiscal year 2025. The county also hosts annual household hazardous waste events where small lithium-ion batteries are accepted. As of July 2022, Maui County residents can also dispose their electric or hybrid vehicle batteries through the Junk Vehicle Disposal Assistance Program. Electronics with batteries are also accepted through the county's e-waste programs. And in regards to federal funding, in February of 2023, a $375 million loan from the U.S. Department of Energy was announced to help partially fund the development of battery resource recovery sites in Rochester, New York, which is expected to start commissioning late this year. And this is just one of several battery manufacturing and processing projects across the country that have been receiving funding from the DOE through Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. Federal funding could be considered to financially support the development of lithium-ion battery recycling facilities in the state of Hawaii. For Free Market Solutions, we provided an example of a lithium-ion battery facility in Arizona, which has the capacity to process up to 18,000 tons of end-of-life batteries and battery manufacturing scraps per year. Then the primary product obviously is black mass consisting of high valuable metals, which is then transported to the resource company. Regarding outreach and education, New York State rechargeable battery law requires manufacturers of public batteries, or groups collaborating with manufacturers to provide outreach and education to New York State consumers regarding the proper way to recycle batteries. So based on the potential solutions that were presented, we received feedback from the task force and community members for additional solutions that could be considered. The importance of product manufacturing to extend the life cycle of batteries was discussed, as well as a system to register lithium-ion batteries. We also received concurrence from task force and community members on the need for the development of a battery recycling infrastructure in the state of Hawaii. In regards to government programs and subsidies, task force and community members also highlighted the importance of pursuing funding opportunities, similarly to the $375 million loan that was granted by US EPA. Regarding free market solutions, we also discussed the importance of lithium-ion battery fire prevention education for the public. And we also discussed the establishment of a PIG, or a permitted interaction group for lithium-ion batteries. If there is continued interest in forming a PIG, you will also have an opportunity to provide commentary in the next couple of slides. Lastly, we also discussed resource reduction alternatives, specifically hydrogen fuel cell vehicles as an alternative to lithium-ion car batteries.
All right, thank you for that. At this time, any members of the public, if you have any thoughts or comments about what was just shared, this is the opportunity for you to make those comments. So do you envision any proposed solutions as ones that are implementable in Hawaii? If you have any thoughts or questions about that, that would be the question that we're addressing this time. And equally important, if you see any challenges, what do you foresee those challenges to be? So this opportunity, please, anyone from the public? It's the opportunity for your comments to be lodged. Do we have anything online?
No, not right now. And if you do, please raise your hand.
Okay.
Yeah, Ramsey, I just wanna just maybe insert some comments that I received via email.
Okay.
From Department of Health's HERE office, hazard response office, regarding the lithium batteries and everything. And so HERE office is heavily involved in the response to the Maui fires.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the waste, the car batteries from electric vehicles, EVs, and also the power walls, the storage units for the home PV units, they're an issue because they're having to adjust them in mass. And so it's sort of live now, where because they need to ship it out as a hazardous waste. And now they're in the process of figuring out how to do that safely, because the shipping companies are very strict on, controlling that stream because of the fire potential on ships and everything. So, yeah, she just wanted to, offer those comments, and as far as the evolving really situation with end-of-life batteries.
Right. Thank you, Elaine. And Christine, I see you have your hand up, but as you're part of the task force, you'll have an opportunity to comment on our next slide. If anybody else in the general public. Sorry, Katie, if you could go back one slide, please. Thank you. Yes, so sorry for those digitally joining us. Those of you in the public or our guests, if you have any thoughts or comments you'd like to share.
Let's move on.
I'm not seeing any raised hands, so I'm going to move to the slide for a task force and we can allow Christine to speak then. That's all right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh,
Christine.
we had, sorry, one guest just raised their hand from Mr. K's Recycle. So I'll go back.
Yeah,
Staying with the public.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the right time, but we weren't in the first part of this little ion project that you guys talking about. But what we just found out that the recycling is doable. I mean, the cost of recycling a lithium ion battery for us is about 10 cents now. So I was wondering if the county or the state would be able to help the community with that in terms of recycling that battery, because it is kind of doable right now, you know, at 10 cents. I mean, obviously, our transportation costs are about 15 to 20, but it can be about 15, but that would be breaking even. But it is doable, you know what I'm saying? I just thought it would be way more than that to recycle it, but 10 cents is for the state is kind of doable, I think, per pound.
And then also we participated in an e-scrap conference. We was able to sit in a couple of classes in regards to how to handle it. They discourage storage. We also visit a plant that does handle lithium ion batteries. And so there's two alternatives. You either do it in the sand or you can wrap it. And so we were able to kind of like take some pictures, and basically he was able to share as to how to handle it. Basically from temporary storage, making sure that we have it in a safe place. As far as solutions, you know, that way first responders will be able to know, we can map it out. First responders will be able to know exactly where the lithium ion batteries are at. So we're basically in works in trying to basically service our community, because it's all about that. We're like an icon, a sore thumb in the community already. So they think that this is something that you know, we're the one that's basically responsible for handling it, and we'd like to do just that. So as far as solutions, we want to be a part of the solution. We want to be a part of what's going to be happening in lithium ion batteries. So we're basically doing the footwork, and yeah, we're grateful that this is something that's being discussed.
Great, thank you. Any other guest comments or questions? All right, let's move forward to the task force once again. Christine, I think you had a comment.
Christine, we cannot hear you. I can see that you are speaking and you don't appear to be muted. Can you check your audio settings? And worst, second resort is commenting in the chat. It's not the same as hearing your voice. Now you look muted. Unmute. You could try to go up to the more button with the 3 dots up in the top corner. At least that's how it looks on my screen. And go to your settings and audio settings and make sure that your speaker or that your mic is on. Oh, shucks. Yes, you appear to be unmuted. So I think there's something on your side. You might, I hate for you to miss any meeting. One thing you could try is to leave and come back and we could readmit you. Or if you'd like to leave your comments in the chat, that's an option as well.
Thanks, Katie. So we'll work that out. Are there any other task force members? We want to encourage each task force member to share your thoughts or opinions about the last discussion.
Yes, I'll say a little bit.
Please.
About some of what Wayne was talking about. Yeah, we've been involved with the Lahaina notifiers. And so the big issue that they're working out with that is all the power walls and EV batteries that have been affected by the heat, essentially, defective. Shipping companies are not accepting it because it's defective. And so the issue is making it, de-energizing it essentially to be able to allow it to be shipped off island. That's becoming a challenge. They're putting it into a salt solution essentially to do that. And even when it's de-energized as much as they think they can get it down, which is about 0.5 watts, it's still at risk for catching fire. And so that's a big issue, is getting those defective batteries, off island, essentially, disposed of properly. That's one of the concerns.
Okay, thank you. Any other task force members, please? You share your thoughts, opinions.
No, oh, I see one, just, no. What's that?
There's a hand up. Yeah, we do see a hand.
That is Nicole.
Nicole? Nicole?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Listening to some of these downstream impacts around managing the batteries in times of disaster and really otherwise, because they're quite flammable, it reignites for me the power and importance of supporting the upstream component of the life cycle, the design and the manufacturing of these batteries, to keep toxicity and threat to human health and ecosystem health and safety and longevity in mind. And I know it's a meta conversation and I don't know what we do about it in this state plan from our perspective, but I hope we keep in mind that in addition to figuring out the very complicated and expensive pathways for recycling these batteries, we also need to figure out how to ask Apple to make sure their phone batteries are lasting 10 years instead of 2. So throwing that back in there for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Any additional comments? As for members? If not, we can move on to our next agenda item, please.
So now we will be diving into the specific topic for today's meeting, which is the statewide recycling programs. So problem statements were developed for each of the 3 state programs that we will be evaluating today. So these are the deposit beverage container program, the electronic device recycling program, and the glass and mass disposal program. So these problem statements can also be found in the meeting agenda if you would like to go back and review in greater detail. So in summary, for the deposit beverage container program, accuracy and completeness of data was identified as a problem, as well as the current redemption value, which makes the program expensive or be attractive for recycling markets. So here we have a brief overview on the deposit beverage container program. So in Hawaii, Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 342G sets requirements for the deposit beverage containers recycling regarding record keeping, distributor registration, reporting, and auditing. So this includes a 5-cent deposit fee for eligible containers as well as a 1-cent non-refundable fee. And to the right, you can see we have a flow diagram illustrating how the program works, which we will be summarizing in the next couple of slides. So here we have a process flow chart that describes what the program does. So it places, as mentioned, a 5-cent refundable deposit fee on the beverage containers, as well as the non-refundable 1-cent fee. Customers receive the 5-cent deposit fee when they return the container to a redemption center, and the 1-cent container fee supports program administration, operations, and also funds a handling fee to support recycling at certified redemption centers. And here's a list in greater detail of what is covered under the program, as well as some examples. So the program covers aluminum, bimetal, glass, and plastic PET and HDPE containers that are 68 fluid ounces or less, or all covered under the DBC program. We also have examples of what is not covered under the program, including milk and wine. And here we have a diagram that presents the redemption rates in the state of Hawaii between 2013 and 2021. Redemption rates have gradually been decreasing in the last decade, as you can see here. Another key metric to note is the population with curbside access to deposit beverage container recycling, specifically in Honolulu County, which was approximately 77% in 2021. High five containers placed in the blue bin do not get refunded. And according to a 2016 study conducted by Cascadia Consulting for the city and county of Honolulu, approximately 5% of curbside recycling placed in the blue bins are high five recyclables. And additionally, another metric to note is that approximately 88% of beverage units sold in the state are covered by the program. So certified redemption centers may weigh loads of empty deposit beverage containers and pay out refunds based on the weight rates by material type. Consumers may request hand counts of container loads of 200 or less, and container loads must only consist of high five labeled beverage containers and must also be segregated by material type. So the problem statement that was developed for electronics device recycling program is presented here in the screen. And as a brief reminder, these problem statements can also be found in the meeting agenda if you would like to go back and review in greater detail. But in summary, for the electronic device recycling program, lack of infrastructure was identified as a problem to be considered in the identification of potential solutions. So a quick overview on the electronic recycling program. The Hawaii Electronic Device Recycling Recovery Law requires electronic devices or device manufacturers to operate recycling programs. So covered electronics would include computers, printers, monitors, portable laptops, and televisions as well. And as of 2022, there were approximately 54 covered electronic device manufacturers and 19 covered television manufacturers registered in the state of Hawaii. Here we have our last problem statement for the Glass Advanced Disposal Fee Program, also available for review in the agenda. In summary, the problem identified for the Glass Advanced Disposal Fee was the lack of a baseline recovery rate or target recovery goals against which to measure program progress and success. So Hawaii Revised Statutes 342G 82 sets requirements for glass container recycling regarding record keeping. So this would be for non-deposit glass. So record keeping, importer registration, funding, reporting, and county program requirements. It also requires manufacturers, importers, and distributors of glass containers in Hawaii to pay a 1.5 cent per container fee. Here we have a summary of each of the problem statements identified for the 3 statewide recycling programs. So as a brief synopsis, as mentioned, for the Hi-Fi program, accuracy and completeness of data, as well as the current redemption value. Electronic devices recycling program, the problem identified was the lack of infrastructure. And then for the glass advanced disposal fee program, again, no baseline recovery rate or target recovery goals to measure program progress and success.
All right. So once again, we've come to the portion of inviting guest members from the community to share your thoughts on what was just reported. And if you have questions, this would be the time to do that. If you don't have any particular, let's frame some questions. Do you know of an additional problem associated with the statewide recycling program in Hawaii that should be brought to the attention of the state? Again, this is opportunity for the community to provide feedback, questions, or comments. Monitors, anyone, any thoughts? Any hands?
Please feel free to raise your hand, or if you'd also like to type your comment in the chat.
We're going to move on to task force members. If a guest member does come up with some thought, please raise your hand and we'll come back to you. Task force members. The opportunity, and once again, landfill disposal, potentially recyclable materials, in other words, electronics, deposit beverage containers, and non-deposit glass, can negatively impact the environment and affect human and wildlife health, leading to enormous costs. With these thoughts in mind, the presentation is made. Please provide your feedback, thoughts on the problem statement.
We see Nicole has her hand raised.
Cool.
Hi, sorry, I might have misunderstood the task. It's not so much a problem statement comment, so I can hold off.
Yes. Okay. Elaine, you have a thought?
Yeah, specifically on the DBC portion of the discussion. Act 12 was mentioned in the problem statement, and Act 12 is of last year's legislature, 2022. The legislature is helped us out to improve our programs or make it a little bit more efficient, but specifically is requiring us to implement an audit program for both distributors and certified redemption centers. And you know, that was put in statute and everything. But the one thing that I think we can hopefully, you know, get from our group's discussion is a portion of that is it specifies that the selection process for the subject of the audits be a risk-based process. And like where we need help or might be useful is, you know, if anybody can contribute ideas on specific risk-based criteria that we can incorporate, you know, into that process to make it, you know, fair and equitable thing. So I just throwing that out, you know, if anybody has ideas. Expression of the discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. Again, that's regarding Act 12. Any other task force members present online or in the room? Any thoughts, opinions on problem statement, please? Okay, hearing none, seeing no hands, let's move on to potential solutions discussion.
Ramsey, I saw Nicole's hand go back up, and I'm wondering if she wanted to share her thoughts at this point.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'm wondering if for the high five problem statement, it's relevant or worthwhile to call out some of the specific areas where there's a lack of data clarity. One zone that I've had trouble with in the past when engaging in research around the recycling programs is transparency around broker relationships, and that seems to play a major role. I'm wondering if it's helpful to get really specific around some of those categories for us to explore, since data transparency was listed as a problem.
Yeah. Thank you. We're noting that down. That's definitely an avenue we can look further into to refine our problem statement. Yeah. Thank you, Nicole, for the clarification. And for any of the task force or even the general public, any other comments or thoughts on any of the problem statements we saw, or perhaps the question Lane posed on Act 12? Also, if the thought strikes you later on, please feel free to put it in the chat. We're recording all comments written down and your verbal ones as well.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to potential solutions discussion overview.
Righty. So as Ramsey mentioned, we will now be transitioning over into the topic of potential solutions for each of the 3 programs identified. So for the deposit beverage container or the I-5 program, there is no nationwide bottle bill in the United States. However, there are 10 states plus Guam that have implemented their own bottle bill or their own bottle deposit program, as we can see here on the map. Let's see here. So as mentioned, there's currently no, oh, sorry, I couldn't go there. Yes. As previously mentioned, there is no nationwide bill being implemented in the states. However, there have been multiple efforts to pass such legislation. And there are 2 pieces of legislation currently up for consideration in the US Congress, including the Breakthrough from Plastic Pollution Act, which would instate minimum recycled content requirements for beverage containers, and the implementation of a national beverage container deposit program, as well as a 10-cent deposit fee on all eligible programs. So here's a list of the 10 states that were mapped out in the last slide. So these are the states that have bottle bills. As we can see here, deposit fees vary by state from 5 cents to 15 cents. Michigan, Oregon, and Vermont had the highest redemption rates for deposit beverage containers in 2021. As presented in this table, these 3 states also had higher deposit fees than other states with similar bottle bills. For the electronics recycling program, in terms of what's going on in the country, there are no federal legislation requirements for electronic recycling in the United States. However, there are 25 states plus DC that have implemented their own electronics recycling laws, as we see here on the map. These are mostly producer responsibility recycling laws, and California also has an advanced recycling fee for electronics. In terms of what's going on in the States for the glass advance disposal, or I should say non-deposits of glass. There is no federal legislation requiring non-deposit glass recycling in the US. So again, these would be, for example, wine, hard liquor, and milk and dairy product bottles. However, there are 2 states that have deposit fees for wine bottles, including Maine and Iowa, and 2 states that also have deposit fees for liquor bottles, which are Maine and Vermont. So with that, we will be turning it over to our industry expert speakers or our subject matter experts. So I'll let you introduce Terry.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Our guest speaker today, Terry Talbert, and is Walter joining us?
He's online.
He's online. Okay, very good.
I'm here.
Walter, I'm sorry we didn't get your introduction earlier, but thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to our speakers at this time.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have 6 slides with 5 topics, and I looked at this of how to get the recycling rate up because it's nationwide, the recycling rate is going down. And then how do we keep the recyclers strong so that we can do the job? And with inflation, a whole bunch of other things, we're going to need some additional help. So I looked at it, how do we re-energize the Hawaii 5 program? I'm from a marketing background, so I like to tout all the good things that recycling does. So if we could report annually to the Hawaii residents, you know, like, hey, we recycled 700 million containers or more for 1.4 million people. That's exciting stuff. So if you look at the table below of my slide. There's really all kinds of things you can do, but you can take X amount of containers and 1 ton of aluminum and you save this amounts of barrels of oil. Kilowatts of energy. Or if you aligned the beverage containers from end to end, it would circle around the item 500 times or to the moon and back. I mean, those are some neat things that you can do with statistics. And it sounds wonderful if you're driving to work or whenever you're on the radio or what have you. Just to re-energize it and thank the people of what they're doing. There's been talk about raising the deposit to 10 cents. We are in support of that. When I was a boy, it was 5 cents back in the 60s. So we really do need to look at raising it to 10 cents to help re-energize the program. My next slide is improving consumer trust in the program. A new segregated rate study needs to be done. The beverage industry keeps adding smaller and smaller units. Probably the smallest one is the Costco tiny little bottle that you have 200 of those. I mean, it's not even a pound. It's crazy. Or one of the solutions could be, you may have to add a 3rd tier. Right now we have 2 tiers for plastic. The cans are perfect. The glass is perfect. It's the plastic that we have problem with. Some states are looking at doing an annual or biannual review of the segregated rate study for accuracy. I think we should encourage that because it seems like every time you go to the store, there's a new smaller size or what have you. In addition to that, the manufacturers are lightweighting the containers, and so it changes. Final. The next slide, increase customer convenience. At the peak of the High Five program, the recycling industry had 119 locations with a statewide recycling rate of 78%. And now we're, I believe, around 56%. And the biggest reason for that is the lack of locations, because convenience is the number one reason that people will or will not recycle. If you tell a consumer, hey, I've got to drive 2 or 3 miles, they're more willing to do it than say, hey, I got to drive 15 miles. So if you're, up in Kahuku or Hauula or Waimanalo, those types of places where there's not an easy availability of recycling, and it's not easy for the recycler to do it either, because there's a cost of these long distances. For example, when we were running Kahuku, it takes my driver a half day just to drive up there and back. So how many drivers would we need in order to bring convenience into the marketplace? There's a cost to that. We also feel that sometimes the grocery stores, they're tasked to support their recycling, but so many times recyclers are doing it for them. But there have been instances where we can't get into a marketplace, where if we could have more support, that would be very helpful. Recycling can be done outside of the store, in the parking lot. We've taken that off of doing it on the inside, and I think they sometimes forget what we bring to the program. The next slide. Assist the recyclers to keep up with inflation. The state uses, I believe it's Crow, to do your study, and they study it for I don't know how many months, but I believe it typically ends like in March, and then they produce their report in June. And so we have to live with those handling fees from like 1023 to the 1024 period. That's a whole year plus the time that it was being studied. And it doesn't always, they don't always look at all of our costs. I think this most recent study, they just mainly looked at our freight costs. Mainly because the commodity values were up at the time, but right after the study ended, we had a decrease in aluminum by 44% and plastic prices dropped. So my next slide, I should get ahead of myself, 45%. And yet, starting January 1st, by state mandated minimum wage, we have to increase our minimum wage to 16.6%. And when the wages go up, workman's comp goes up, temporary disability insurance goes up. This year it's gone up by 12%, and then medical is an ever increasing cost of 25%. So I would encourage that when they look at the study to determine the handling fee rate, that they look at either doing it more often to compensate for the commodity value swings. It's real important because we're having a very difficult year right now. And because of the climate change and all the natural disasters, even though we haven't, lucky knock on wood in Hawaii, but our property insurance is, throughout the United States or even globally, depending on who you deal with. So our property insurance is way up. Now, next slide. Back to one of my topics, I wanted to talk about how do we keep the recyclers strong to do their job. And you have good years and bad years, but if you add the good and the bad over time, you're not making very much. And yet all of our equipment is getting old. The last state grant program was awarded in 2008. And with that money, we were able to buy new trailers and tractors and bobcats and forklifts, and all of that stuff now is very, very old. So you look around our plant and you see all this old equipment, but half of it is not even operational. We're just taking parts just to keep the old stuff going again. That can't continue. We do need another grant program or higher handling fees in order to survive. That's it.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. This time I'm going to ask Walter Alcorn to present his thoughts to the task force. Walter? Good advice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to do this remotely as well. I am Vice President for Environmental Affairs and Industry Sustainability at the Consumer Technology Association. And I've been working on electronics recycling issues as most of what I do for the past couple of decades. Go ahead to the next slide. And the next one. Okay, just a little bit of background, and some of this you already saw in the earlier presentation. Hawaii is one of the 24 states around the country that has a variation of extended producer responsibility, a law in effect for electronics manufacturers. And this law was recently updated last year in 2022. And up there are the requirements, some of the key requirements for manufacturers under the law. Basically, manufacturers in Hawaii have to arrange for the recycling of 50% of the amount of weight that they sold in the previous year. So that means if you're, say, a television manufacturer and you sell into Hawaii 100 TVs and each of them are 50 pounds each on average, you're responsible for half of the total weight of those 50 TVs that you sold, or however that works. Basically, it's half of the amount of weight that you sell into the market. That's the requirement for this year, 2023. It goes up to 60% of the weight sold next year, and then the year after that is 70% of the weight sold. And I'll show some slides later. Those targets basically are going in the opposite direction of the background weight for electronics coming in for recycling or any sort of management. They're actually going down. So it's important to note too that this is actually a requirement that's all on manufacturers, not on the counties at all. And I'll just note this is a different type of thing to recycle, unlike, bottles and cans and things that we use all the time. Electronics tend to be something that we need to recycle maybe only once a year or two. More likely, a lot of us, maybe it's once every 5 years. We recycle, maybe we go recycle the TV and, an old laptop at the same time, but it generally is not something that's done regularly by our citizens. So go on to the next slide. A couple of other points. I did mention that those recycling targets that I showed on the slide before are increasing as the returns decrease. And it's important to note too that the sales weight, so in other words, how much weight, and nobody else thinks of the world this way than we do, but the weight of how much electronics is sold onto the market or into the market in a year is pretty flat. It spiked during the pandemic a little bit. It went up about 20%, then it really crashed the year after, and it's kind of steady now about what it was back in 2019, maybe a little bit higher, but not much. The other thing to note with the new law is collection convenience has improved a little bit, but not really that much. The law talks about there should be drop-off opportunities for consumers and businesses in each of the zip codes with 25,000 people or more. There are 25 of those zip codes. And if you go onto the Department of Health's website, there are only 11 drop-off locations that exist in those 25 zip codes. So basically, in the other 14 zip codes, if you live there, or I guess if you live in one of the zip codes that there's not a collection opportunity, you're paying anywhere between, as it shows on the website, $150 and $400 per pickup. I can't imagine too many people are doing that, but that is allowed under the current law as an alternative to providing free drop-off service, regular drop-off service in those zip codes. There are also events, collection events. Those are they're not routine, but they do happen, and sometimes in some areas more often than others. And that is also a collection mechanism. Let's go to the next slide. So this shows over time, between 1990 and 2015, the weights of electronics that were put on the market. This was done by the Rochester Institute of Technology, and it kind of gives you an understanding of why we're seeing weights in the current return stream declining. It's because the weights from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they've been declining. They were declining, and they peaked in the early 2000s. So typically electronic equipment, consumers will use it for anywhere between 7 to 12 years. So it's not surprising that we're seeing these declines in weights based on this. Go ahead to the next slide. And in the next slide, you can see basically the overall e-waste trend, and that it's kind of a smoothing out, if you will, of the sales weight data, which was a little bumpy, from year to year, depending upon technology changes, like the transition from the old tube TVs and tube monitors to the LCDs. That was a big drop one year, but then it kind of came back. And then go on to the next slide. And this is my final slide. This shows the actual returns in the California program, which is not controlled by manufacturers at all. It's a state-run program, and it has the advanced recycling fee. But you can see there's been a really steady decline there. So if you could go back to that second background slide, and then I'll wrap up. Yeah, there we go. That's it. Yes, that one. Yes. So what I would encourage everybody to be thinking about is, if we're going to have a problem, if the targets aren't reachable because there's just not enough weight coming in, which we project to happen probably not this coming year, but the year after it in 2024, then we would recommend that there be an alternative path to compliance. Basically, put drop-off locations in those other 14 zip codes. That's something at the Consumer Technology Association we're looking at and are looking to propose more formally. But we would love to get any feedback from this group on whether that makes sense or not, and appreciate the opportunity to present on this.
Thank you, Walter. Both our speakers, Terry and Walter, thank you so much. I know you just had a question for the task force. We're running a little ahead of schedule, so we're going to give everyone an opportunity to ask any questions, as well as respond to what you just offered us to think about.
And I see that there's a hand raised. Oh, no, it slipped away. Does anybody have any questions or comments for our speakers? Yes.
I see
Okay.
Christine's hand is up first, and then Mr. K's recycle.
Wonderful. Christine? Christine, are you speaking to us?
Can you hear me?
Yes. We can.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that was my first question. Now, is this our opportunity to comment on what the presenters said?
Yes.
Okay, so first, when it comes to the deposit beverage container program, I think it's really important for us to be forward-looking and to understand that this whole idea of single-use beverage containers is something that we need to get away from. There's a tremendous global trend push to do away with single-use containers. So we would be very foolish to look at how this program is going to move into the future without considering that. I am deeply engaged in the global plastics treaty negotiations. So I'm specifically focused on and interested in plastic containers. This is the lowest hanging fruit in a lot of very difficult negotiations where we're having to talk about banning plastic for car seats or medical uses. So I think we can pretty much bet that within the next several years, there will be a ban on single-use plastic containers. And we need to prepare for that and think about how it's going to affect the program. The other thing is when we're talking about, popularizing or making recycling, interesting to people again, we need to be honest that this is not a recycling program. And this is nothing against recyclers. We recycle Hawaii. We believe in recycling. We support everything Reynolds has been doing for the past several years. But again, putting ourselves in a forward-thinking context, the reason people are not excited about recycling is because they don't believe in it, and there's been a lot more information about what it actually is. So our program is not a recycling program. It's a collection and redemption program. Number one is people are not really sure, what is the process that the state uses to verify that these materials are actually being recycled? And then when we get to plastic, we have to understand it's not infinitely recyclable. Most times it's getting downcycled. It's getting downcycled into polyester clothing that when it gets washed degrades into microplastic that's ending up in amniotic fluid in our blood and our brains. So this whole idea that recycling plastic is some kind of wonderful thing and our High Five program is some kind of great contribution to the environment is something we really need to think about and address and reevaluate and become honest, because people, especially next generation, they're looking for authenticity. And there's a lot about the program and the way it's presented that's not authentic. And so how and when we get into that, I'm not exactly sure, but there's no sense talking about any of this without doing that. And this idea that, we recycled enough containers to go to the moon and back, I'm not inspired by that. I'm horrified, because every single one of those containers was made at great expense to the people that live next to the plastic plant or that are suffering from the, it washing up on their shores or whatever. So there's that. And we need to look at decreasing consumption of single-use packaging. It's coming. We should prepare for that. So then on to electronics. One last thing about that. Whatever infrastructure we have in place now to collect single-use beverage containers, we should be looking at how to repurpose that infrastructure to collect plastic that is necessary. So at the international level, what we're working on is a steep reduction in plastic production. We're saying, hey, there's only a certain amount of plastic that we actually do need. We need to identify what that is and then repurpose whatever infrastructure we have to collect unnecessary single-use beverage containers towards plastic that is necessary. And again, we're not recycling it here, we're collecting it and getting off island. So then for the e-waste, all I can say is we have to really start to look at durability and how do we push durability. This idea that every 5 years you're going to throw out your TV and buy a new one is just not acceptable. I was on a call 2 days ago with the White House, Intergovernmental Affairs. They're pushing very strongly for right to repair. This also has implications for lithium-ion batteries. And we need to really be looking at durability and right to repair so that TVs can be repaired and not thrown away. And those are true solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Our next speaker who has a hand raised is Mr. Kays, Recycle.
Yeah. getting back to Walter's talk about things are getting less in terms of electronics. I don't understand. In prior, he was talking about not taking in printers, standalone printers, which is very heavy and bulky. And so in that situation, I don't understand why he would try to alleviate it when that is the bulk of electronics. I mean, it's heavy, such like the CRT TVs. But we already gave in to some of the manufacturers' ideas where they don't want peripherals in their recycling program, and that when we recycle quite a bit, and the peripherals are about 25 to 30% of the load. What we ship out in a month or in a container per month is about 35,000. So if you take 25% of that, it's about 10,000 pounds every container that is going into the landfills. The peripherals are called DVDs, mice, keyboards, VCRs, turntable speakers, all that type of thing, which are electronics that are not recycled. So if you add that to the list, then it would, and like Christine is saying, these things are made to last 3 years. I mean, the TVs, the CRTV last 20 years. We're still getting them back. Your flat screen TVs last 1 to 2 years, or 2 to 3 years, and they're getting trashed. I mean, that's ridiculous. And they're making things such that they're not being able to get fixed. I mean, even Apple is going to this different type of structure where you have 3-year contracts rather than 2. So, by right and the reuse, they just passed the reuse bill in California. So now we're able to reuse, what is that called? Right to repair just happened in California. So that is great. But and that's why we're saying these companies are going to 3-year contracts, and so more so we need the right to repair, or so people are going to be hanging on to these things. So all I'm saying is there's a lot of things that are not in the recycle program that should be in the program, and we had to deal with it because that is what the manufacturers wanted at that point. Also, our landfills in the for one example of this electronics that we don't know about and we should know about is curbside electronics are being burned at H3 incineration. And that could be part of the recycling program also, but we burn it and nobody talks about those TVs and printers on curbside that's being burned in H3, the incineration. And it's because nobody's talking about it, is because we need the energy and we don't want to burn the gas, so we burn the electronics. And you know what's in electronics? You got mercury, you got lead, you got all those things in the TVs. So, by right, there's a lot more that can be recycled. Our landfills on the Big Island are getting overfilled. I mean, if we keep on doing it, we're not going to last 10 more years, and we're going to have to build another landfill. And it's in pristine land in Waikoloa. So we really need to think this out about which direction we want to go. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I add on the convenience part of that? We do have a weekly collection in Kona, so we do go on the island once a week to collect electronics. Hopefully we can be over there more. And then we do have a one-time event coming up in Waimea to service like a more rural area. But education is lacking. Like if we could somehow have funding in order to push more education on that matter, it would help us a lot. A lot of people still don't know that they can recycle electronics for free. We have calls every day of people asking if we will take a TV, and when we say that we will for free, they're so shocked. So as far as if we could educate more of the public, that would make a difference in how much we could bring in as well.
And can I add to that? So with the Waimea event, we worked actually marketing. So, you know, if you look at the rural routes as far as zip codes, we literally had to go. I went out to Waikoloa. I went to 2 different areas in Waikoloa Village and Waikoloa. I hit Kona, Habe, Kohala. Kohala. A lot of the businesses, as far as zip codes, they weren't aware that, you know, we have the recycling taking place over in Kona. I was able to let them know that we're having one taking place over in Waimea. So we're working the zip codes. We're actually having to do the footwork, and we're also doing advertisements. And so we are concerned about the community and educating the community. We're doing as much as we can to touch, personally touch those zip code areas. You know, they're way out of, if you go to Kohala, Kohala's way out of the way. So even Waikoloa, and they were so, pleased that we are actually doing the footwork and basically taking the necessary times to let them know that we are available and that we are a company that's reaching out and basically, you know, making ourselves available to their electronic e-waste.
Great, thank you. We've got 2 others, and then Christine will come back to you. Individuals, questions, we have
Nicole?
a few minutes.
Yes. So Nicole, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's presented and Mr. Kays and Christine for your comments so far, much of which I'm going to briefly reiterate because I think there's some important points in there. So point 1, we're talking about one aspect of the recycling ecosystem here, which is collection. And that is incredibly important. And thank you to everyone who is doing that. To Christine's point about the erosion of public trust, one of the most frequent emails I get into the Zero Waste Oahu account is, should I just throw my recycling into the trash can and burn it at H-Power because I don't believe that once it leaves the island, it's going to be recycled. And there's a lot of good reason people have doubt. I think just tried to put a picture into the chat. I think it loaded there. So that's from a PBS documentary, a Frontline documentary that followed our recycling to Indonesia. So what we've packaged here at our MRFs, what the brokers sold to Indonesia, and their bill of lading showed that the materials got to Indonesia. And then once in Indonesia, which I acknowledge we have less control over, it's important to note that the PET from our High Five recycling was taken and recycled, and the caps and the labels were discarded. And of course, they're different types of plastic. That makes a lot of sense. So there's more and more storytelling that demonstrates how broken that part of our recycling system is. And before we double down on maximizing collection, we need to have answers for that. We need to be accountable for what we're producing and sending into somebody else's backyard to be managed. A couple ideas here. So labels apparently are part of the legal mechanism around the deposit beverage containers. That's where the High Five is noted. Is there another way to do it so that when we are sending these overseas, there's not multiple materials that the actual the recycling process has to deal with as they remanufacture? Another idea on the collection front, you know, I think of something around 70% of Honolulu or county residents, or I don't know if it was just the city of Honolulu, have access to blue bin recycling. I'm one of the 30 some odd % that doesn't. And I go and I make friends with my neighbors and I bring them bananas, and I'm the weirdo who finds them when they pull their blue bin out. And I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be able to get any of this stuff off island unless I can use some of your space. So could the state of Hawaii normalize resource sharing in that way? Create an app that allows neighbors to sign up and say, hey, we have extra space in our blue bin. Put some materials in there. So that's an idea I wanted to share. On glass, we send most of it to Strategic in California, and it gets melted and sent back to us as more glass. And the ridiculousness of that entire system is hard for me to put words to, when glass is a highly sanitizable and reusable product. I used to work for a wine place in Honolulu here, and customers would bring back the wine bottles and we'd sanitize them and fill them with more wine. We have local brands like Shaka Tea, like Kona Beer, that are being forced to manufacture on the mainland. What if we had a bottle washing facility here and they could save enormously on that expense of purchasing more and more glass and just wash and reuse, and they bottle locally? I mean, that would be a huge win in so many ways for our economy. So as we're talking about recycling an endless tap of single-use items, like Christine mentioned, the future is moving away from that. So how does reuse play in? And a last thing on e-waste, I'm wondering, for Walter, does refurbishment of e-waste figure into the numbers you were sharing? Like, there's a group here called Hawaiian Hope that takes computers, fixes them, and redistributes them. So I guess, are these showing up in the numbers, or is it only what we collect to ship off island? And a action we could take, at least in my world, when I go to conferences, I'm constantly gifted swag, which includes things like little flash drives. I guess those are less common now. Flashlights, endless little electronic trinkets. Can we just have a statewide mandate that people have to opt in to swag at conferences? And then there's not drawers full of these non-recyclable gadgets that people are holding on to in this urban mine and not recycling because they can't get recycled. Thank you for listening. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thanks, Nicole. We have a few more minutes, and we'd like to ask the people who are remaining with questions and thoughts to please kind of streamline your comments. But I know, Walter, you were just asked a question. Do you want to respond?
Yeah, just very quickly. Yeah, the refurbished product does not count towards those 50 and 60, 70% targets. Thanks.
Thank you.
Here, and our next speaker, Nick, if you could briefly provide your comments and thoughts.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, my name is Nick. I'm with the TNA Computer Recycling Services. We're a electronic collector here on the island of Oahu, and we participate in helping on outer islands also. We do have permanent sites, and we do have a lot of collection events that we have throughout all of the zip codes, basically, that were mentioned earlier. And I just wanted to add that we really do appreciate the log helping us out this year specifically, because it's been such a downward trend for us for a lot of years. And we wanted to just make a comment on how important I think some consistency on time and allowing us to develop this program and expand our network for collections really is. I mean, we're just in the first year of this actual law, and I think that we will need a little bit more time to get that outreach and start putting more effort into expanding that collection network. But I think we're definitely on the right track. We have a really good roster for collection events that really do prep for the island, and we're continually adding more and continually adding more expansion into our collection network via our site. So I think it's a good thing all around, and I'm just really interested to see ultimately how the city and county and their plan to help promote this and try and put more of a regulation on how much electronics actually gets into their stream is going to affect those overall numbers, because according to some of the studies, that's in the millions of pounds that we're missing and not able to capture in our recycling stream. So those are just some of the things that I'm excited about, and we're grateful that we have an opportunity to move forward and expand our collection network. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ahmad, you had a comment.
Ahmad, you're muted if you're speaking.
Oh, sorry, my turn. Touching on incineration of e-waste, just wanted to mention that incineration of commercial e-waste and disposal of commercial e-waste is banned at H-Power in the landfill. H-Power actually, for a fact, does not want e-waste coming in. E-waste creates problems with the electronics, the batteries, and the heavy metals. It impacts ash quality. We're working on programs to actively divert those away from H-Power. We're working on partnering with recyclers and setting up our transfer stations and convenience centers to be able to provide another option for residents to separately drop off those kinds of items. We're also working on setting up the bulky appointment system to perhaps in the future provide a collection option from people's homes for electronic wastes. So in addition to that, other things that there's a long list I have here of things H-Power doesn't want, including e-waste, batteries, mattresses, metals, and glass. Those are all things we don't want to come in. But knowing that H-Power is the last stop to do something with the trash and stabilize it before it goes into a landfill, H-Power's job is to save landfill space, recover whatever energy it can, and whatever large size recyclables and specialty items that are caught coming in, especially metals, compressed gas cylinders, and appliances that come in as unacceptable items are recovered in the process here.
Thank you, Amaya. Brian, we have about a minute left. Please provide your comment.
Who did you
Brian,
ask for? I apologize. Yeah, so Brian Catella, URT, we're one of the processors that gets material from Hawaii. I actually work with Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii. And going on what Walter says, more locations, the better. I know we just mentioned that with the trash collectors. My largest collectors are going to both be trash collectors, the haulers. So diverting the material from there to the recyclers to the processors is going to help out a lot. So going against what Walter just says, I believe the weight is there. Plus adding more material that could be, like Mr. Roy, Mr. K said, adding that type of peripheral material would definitely also help. Two, the other large collectors could be Goodwill. So if we get the Goodwills and the Salvation's Army on board, you have those sites that have the locations in various parts of the island to be able to get that material. So I think that will help out quite a bit.
Okay, thank you, Brian. We've come to the close of our comment period, but I do want to acknowledge that we have two other people who have comments to share with us. If you can keep it really brief, we can put it on the record, or we can come back to you at following the break. But we want to stay on track with the agenda. We have a lot to cover this afternoon. So who do we have?
Christine and Mr. K.
Christine and Mr. K. If you can keep it brief, please.
Yes.
Christine?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so first, we need to fold into this process some very important information. The EPA just issued a directive calling for the end of PET production. So let's think about how that's going to affect the DBC program. Second, electronics, we're misusing terminologies. This is not an e-waste collection program. It's a computer and TV collection program. Many years ago, there was a bill that came out of Department of Health, a beautiful bill. Pretty much everything with a cord was going to get collected. It was the manufacturers who swooped in from out of state and shut the whole thing down. We need to talk about expanding the program to include anything with a plug. I echo 100% everything that Nicole brought up about reuse. Thank you for doing that. And my question is, why are we just hearing from the manufacturers as we're educating ourselves about this? I think we need to continue over this conversation about electronics and have a presentation from Mr. Case. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Christine. Speaking of Mr. K, you had a comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to get some numbers, but just to continue, the other thing that we need to talk about is the solar panels. They're coming. A lot of people are trying to do away with them. So we need to kind of get into that realm now because it's coming around, if you know what I mean. I don't know if it's gonna be hazardous waste or you know, we gotta figure that one out on the solar panels because we have a lot of that coming in now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Key. That's actually one of the topics that we're gonna be covering at some
Oh yeah, I'm
point.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, we want to move forward. Thank you for your comments and everyone else's questions. Let's take a quick break. We were scheduled to come back at 10:15. Looking around the room, does everyone say okay to come back at 10:15? We want to do it at that point. What is, why do you feel here? Let's come back at 10:20, please.
Yes, 10:20, so we will come back promptly and probably start then. Thank you all.
Great, thank you.
Are you now seeing the full presentation?
Yes. Yes. Thanks, Katie.
Okay. I've reverted back to the one that was available online or on our web-based version. So we'll continue to have that delay as I advance slides, and I apologize for that, but we're back in business. So I'll go off mic.
No problem.
Thank you.
Why don't we go ahead and start? Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Sunny, is anybody in the room speaking? We cannot hear online.
Yes, 1 second.
I think Lane needs to unmute the, there you go. Awesome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So we will now be transitioning into the comparative analysis to see what other states are doing with similar programs. So as we have previously mentioned, the state identified 5 solution categories for consideration in the identification of solutions. EPR, which is a policy highlighting the producer's responsibility for the post-consumer management of its products and its packaging. This includes shifting financial and management responsibilities with government and key stakeholders oversight away from the public and upstream to the producer, as providing incentives to producers to incorporate environmental consideration into the design of their products and packaging. Right. So for extended producer responsibility in regards to the deposit beverage container program, we evaluated or looking to be break free from Plastic Pollution Act of 2021, which would require producers with annual revenues greater than 1 million or who produce more than 1 ton of covered products to design, manage, and finance programs for the collection and processing of e-waste. For the deposit beverage containers. Producers will cover the cost of waste management, cleanup, and awareness raising measures. Covered products include packaging, containers, paper, and food service products, regardless of their ability to be recycled, composted, and their material type, including plastic, paper, and glass. The most recent action on the bill were hearings held in June 2022 by the House of Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Environment and Climate Change. In terms of electronics, HRS Chapter 339D, as we have previously discussed, requires electronic device manufacturers to operate recycling programs in the state for covered electronics. In Washington, Senate Bill 6428 establishes a manufactured finance system for the collection, transportation, and recycling of covered electronic products. discarded by households, organizations, school districts, small businesses, and government establishments. eCycle Wisconsin is a statewide manufacturer-funded program that recycles certain electronics used in homes and schools. Wisconsin's electronic recycling law also created eCycle Wisconsin, which is a program in which electronics manufacturers must help cover the cost of electronics recycling for consumers, K through 12 public schools. In California, the Electronic Waste Recycling Act requires retailers selling covered electronic devices in the state to collect a covered electronic waste recycling fee from the consumer. The act requires each manufacturer of these electronic devices to submit an annual report to the board on the number of electronic devices sold by the manufacturer. It also requires the manufacturer or authorized collector or recycler to provide cost-free and convenient opportunities to recycle e-waste. Regarding non-deposit glass, SB 1013. SB 1013 was approved by Governor Newsom on September 27th of 2022 and is effective as of January 1, 2023. This legislative bill brings wine and distilled spirits into the California Beverage Container Recycling Program beginning January 1st of next year. Wineries will need to pay a processing fee to CalRecycle for all containers they sell. Regarding government programs and subsidies, the state will explore updates or improvements to existing infrastructure, policy and regulation, grants and funding, as well as outreach and education opportunities. So specifically to the Deposit Beverage Container Program in Hawaii, Act 176 established the DBC program and the DBC fund to increase participation in deposit programs, increase recycling rates for the specified deposit beverage containers, connect manufacturing decisions, wand recycling program management, and reduce litter. As previously stated, also, HRS Chapter 342 G102 sets requirements for deposit beverage container recycling in regards to record keeping, distributor registration, reporting, and auditing. B5 requires every deposit beverage distributor to pay the department a 5-cent deposit beverage container fee. And these go into the special fund in the state treasury, which pays redemption centers for their handling fee and deposits redeemed by consumers. Models for Collection Program incentivizes the recycling of containers among students. In Honolulu County, Honolulu City Ordinance Chapter 9-1.11 requires city agencies to recycle glass through the city agency recycling program. And the city monitors compliance through annual site inspections and compliance form mailers. Additionally, Chapter 9-3.1 requires liquor serving establishments to recycle glass containers. Furthermore, Hawaii County recently received a $1.5 million grant from the US EPA to enhance recycling infrastructure and waste management systems in Hawaii County, specifically for a city-scale reusable foodware and refillable bottle system in Ilo. And lastly, in California, Recycled Fiber, Plastic, and Glass Grant Program is a competitive grant program that aims to lower overall greenhouse gas emissions by expanding existing capacity or establishing new facilities in California that use California-generated post-consumer recycled fiber, plastic, or glass to manufacture products. Regarding electronics and government programs and subsidies, as previously mentioned, Hawaii Revised Statute 339D requires electronic device manufacturers to operate recycling programs in the state. Maui County hosts triannual events at the Hana landfill, as well as monthly collection events. Molokai and Naiwa landfill and recycling center as well. And then as previously mentioned, in the state of California, we have the Electronic Waste and Recycling Act. In California, in regards to this act, consumers must pay electronic retailers a set fee for the purchase of any new or covered electronics. So this would be, for example, computers, DVD players, laptops, tablets, etc. The covered waste recycling fee is reimbursed by the state to cover electronic devices, device recyclers and collectors. And it is also the only advanced recovery through e-waste program in the United States. The act also sets the collection fees between $4 to $6 depending on the screen size of the covered electronic device. Regarding non-deposit glass, as we previously mentioned earlier in this meeting, HRS 342G-82 sets requirements for container recycling in regards to record keeping, important registration, funding, reporting, and county program requirements. In Honolulu, Chapter 9-1.2 requires city agencies to recycle glass through the city agency recycling program. The city also monitors compliance through annual inspections and compliance from mailers. Also, Honolulu City Ordinance, Chapter 9-3.1, as mentioned, also requires liquor serving establishments to recycle the glass containers. Regarding free market solutions, we looked into what other organizations are doing in the state of Hawaii and identified Revive Glassworks, which reuses glassware sourced from recycled glass bottles that are mostly composted or composed of wine, beer, and liquor bottles from Maui Recycling Services, which they typically get from restaurants and hotels on the island. So as you all can see here, we have some examples of some products that have been repurposed. So these next few slides, we will be introducing education and outreach opportunities to be considered. In the state of Hawaii, Kauai County has developed lots of signage, as we can see here on the screen. The state of Hawaii also has an educator guide for the DUC program. And so there are opportunities to develop additional collateral for consumer manufacturers and recyclers. Furthermore, the state promotes collection events through communication outlets. Other opportunities identified would be to collaborate with non-governmental organizations to organize such collection events, as well as the development, as previously mentioned, of additional education and outreach collateral, as members of this meeting have mentioned. Kokua Hawaii Foundation has a plastic-free Hawaii school art contest for K-12 schools. There are also environmental education events and project grants, as well as the 3Rs school recycling program drives. In the state of Oregon, LD 1909 will require collectors of beverage containers to submit a publicly accessible report each year with a description of the outreach and education efforts that have been implemented under the redemption program. And then lastly, in the state of Connecticut, the Recycle CT Wizard app helps residents determine which household items are acceptable in the recycling bin. And the state also has educational videos and other resources, and also offers school grant programs. For electronics, outreach and education opportunities evaluated or identified in the state of Hawaii, website information, as well as the promotion of e-waste collection events. In Hawaii, as we can see here on the screen, on the first image, the recycling office held their annual recycling education booth at the Kauai County Fair back in 2019, as well as an e-waste raffle to help educate the public on Hawaii's e-waste program. So for this raffle, residents needed to give 2 examples of e-waste for a chance to win a Walmart gift card, which provides incentive to participate. In Washington, WAC 173-900-980 requires the state and the local government, as well as manufacturers and retailers and collection sites, to collaborate in the development and implementation of a public information campaign to promote covered electronics recycling. Responsibilities for these entities include, for the state, they must post information on their website describing where recycling covered products belong, as well as providing access to a toll-free phone service where residents can call in with any of their questions. Develop and provide artwork for use in flyers, signage, web content, and other advertising mechanisms is also the responsibility of the state. For local government, they must promote covered electronics recycling, including the listing of local collection sites and services through existing outreach and education efforts. Manufacturers must administer an independent and standard plan to inform covered entities about where and how to reuse and recycle their covered electronics. And at a minimum, this plan must include an informational website or toll-free number about recycling program in sufficient detail to educate covered entities on how to recycle these electronics. For retailers, they must provide take-home information to consumers describing where and how to use electronic devices. And then in the state of Maryland, other education and outreach opportunities that have been implemented include television and radio commercials, as well as a Rethink Recycling sculpture contest that occurs among schools. Alternatives in regards to the deposit beverage containers. As we all know, the program does cover stainless steel metal, but this could be for plastics and glass containers. PepsiCo's SodaStream Professional is another option or potential solution evaluated. It's a carbonated water dispensal and mobile app system that allows consumers to choose from different flavors, levels of carbonation, and temperatures. Also allows users to track hydration and how many plastic bottles have been saved through a QR-coded bottle and mobile app. Dispensers have been set up in workplaces, college campuses, and airports. They're pretty much everywhere nowadays. Non-deposit glass, the state of Hawaii could support additional local reuse and reuse alternatives. In the state of Oregon, HB 2443, which is also informally known as the Wine Growler Law, allows Oregon wine shops, grocery, wine bars, and restaurants offering wine on tap to also sell bulk wine to go. It also allows customers to bring their own containers, purchasing up to 2 gallons at once. And the law also does apply to hard cider as well. Other alternatives that could be considered, box wine, it extends, it provides an extended shelf life, affordability, portability. Other non-traditional packaging methods include flex bottles. A pro is that it's biodegradable, but there are some cons to consider. It is more expensive to manufacture. And it is designed to biodegrade and therefore not suitable for wines that are meant to be stored for long periods of time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We've come to the point where we'd like to invite our community members and public who are attending the meeting to share your thoughts on the information and materials presented. Specifically, what opportunities we'd like to encourage to enhance existing statewide recycling programs based on what you've heard today or what your thoughts may have been prior to this. So again, we're opening this for public comment. Task force members, you'll have an opportunity to add to that right after this section. Right? Anyone in the public? Mr. K, you had some thoughts earlier, and we may have cut you off because of the time, but you wanted to extend your conversation. This is the opportunity. If you're still with us. Say anything?
Mr. K, if you could expand upon what you put in the chat, what did you mean by the correction is technicians for scale heads and other equipment?
Hi, no, that was my previous comment at 10:09. It says the High Five Fund seems to have $55 million. It would be wonderful if some of those funds could support recycles, such as the areas mentioned by Terry, as well as the shortage and expense of technicians here on Hawaii Island for scale heads. So I meant to say scale heads and other equipment, not just scale heads.
Oh. Yeah. Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Okay.
Could I say something as a private individual? This is Michelle Mitsumori. So yes. Someone had mentioned before about data transparency, and Hawaii State in the High Five program does not recycle the caps, the plastic bottles, even though they are recyclable. And part of that seems to be because removing the caps makes it easier for collectors to ensure that the bottles do not have contamination, such as leftover liquid, because it's a volume business. Yet they are recyclable. So one data transparency piece is, what is the impact of these caps going into the landfill as part of High Five data? And that connects to education, that yes, I see there's education, but if a major issue for collectors is contamination and sometimes also sorting, and I know that in these times, we don't want employees confronting upset customers when they're told their High Fives are not, we don't want that to put our employees in that place. And so when evaluating the impact of public education, not just recycle, but to recycle without contamination, and if that could enable us at some point in the future to recycle caps, because when we talk about plastics, those are all recyclable plastics that could be recycled, but we need to have that behavioral change to reduce contamination. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Is there anyone else? No? Okay, with no other public comment at this time, we're going to move on to our task force members. Please share your thoughts on the information that's been presented this morning. And particularly what opportunities for improvement to the statewide recycling programs do you suggest that we may not have already mentioned or spoke about? Task force members? Let me just go to calling. Ahmad, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to provide? Bob or Allison? Not here.
Hands are
Yes, we
up.
see,
Thank you.
Okay.
yes. Christine?
I thought I'd give other people a chance to jump in, but nobody is, so here I go. First of all, Senate Bill 1458. It would be nice if the consultants could look at that and fold information about that into this process. This is a bill that Recycle Hawaii has been instrumental in drafting and promoting. It's an EPR bill. We call it an EPR bill, but it's specifically focused on reuse. And so the idea is that the top producers of fast-moving consumer goods globally would pay into a fund, and then that fund would be established to set up reuse infrastructure. I would really like the Department of Health and other folks involved in this process to know about this bill. Our recommendation is you expand the e-waste program to include all devices with a cord or a battery. And then it's a real e-waste program. It's not a computer and TV program. And then we should be looking at how that expanded program would overlap with the need to collect lithium-ion batteries. Non-deposit, up the fee to 5 cents. And same thing, look at how that would overlap with reuse programs, because those are the trends, the areas that we need to go in. We need solid information on what an increase in the non-deposit fee from 1.5 cents to 5 cents would cover, because when we went to the legislature with that, the feedback we got, oh, this is a regressive tax, and then you have manufacturers coming in and they just, exaggerate how much it's going to cost everyone. We did some back of the envelope computations and calculations and figured it would maybe be $20 to $30 a year per family. I don't know, but we should really have that information. And we really need to make an effort to use terminology correctly. Recyclable. The fact that a bottle cap is made out of a certain polymer that somebody recycles someplace does not make it recyclable. California is moving in this direction. Again, the people negotiating on the Global Plastics Treaty are moving in that direction. It's recyclable if it can get taken to a site nearby and then it's actually recycled, not downcycled, not shipped off to Indonesia. So we really need to make an effort to be clear in the language we use and authentic. And then my last thing, because I do have something important to share about that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead on the ion batteries.
Oh,
No, I thought we thought you were still in speaking. So we'll move on. We'll come back to that on the batteries.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Nicole,
Go.
thank you, Christine.
Thank
Nicole?
Hi, I have many comments, and given the request to keep the advisory comments brief, I have a question. If we're going to be provided a written opportunity to give detailed feedback, we're not seeing these presentations and suggested solutions in sufficient detail beforehand in order to come to the table with a well-orated 2-minute set of feedback. So that's a question for the consulting team, is how else are we going to be providing feedback? And the things we're saying in this meeting, what is the process for incorporating those into the plan? And I don't necessarily need that answered right now. The other thing I want to briefly point out, included in the chat, the directive of the Department of Health from 342G in relation to solid waste management planning. And it says specifically, the department and each county shall consider the following solid waste management practices and processing methods in their order of priority: source reduction, then recycling and bioconversion, including composting, and then landfilling and incineration. And broadly, throughout this process so far, we're starting with recycling in every conversation. Every category pre-selected for the advisory committee to give feedback on is starting from that framework. And then potentially we're adding in, as we saw in this section, some reuse efforts as a potential alternative. Can we reframe every conversation to start with the source reduction first? That would probably save a lot of commenting and feedback from folks like me, and also follow what we're supposed to be doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Just a comment. We have time now to make additional comments. We were just using the available time we had after the previous section, which is why we're asking for a limited comment near the end. We're just getting close to that section. But the idea of having something in advance so you can properly comment would be a good idea, and I think we're taking that into consideration. But for the time being, we have created space and time for comments here from the task force, so please feel free to do so at this time. Lane.
I can add on, just a couple of points on additional input. So, we will be distributing the meeting presentation, the PowerPoint presentation to everyone. We'll post it up on our website. And as far as if you have, more input or ideas to contribute, you can email that in to us. I don't think it'll be, falling outside the sunshine with things or anything, because we're not taking votes on things, and we're essentially, information gathering. So, that's an option. So, don't worry that, you're not gonna have the opportunity to give your full input. So yeah, just feel free to email it in to me.
So just to clarify, if you don't get all comments in during your meeting, they can send that to you by email. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I'll distribute.
And then you'll distribute.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Other task force members. I see a couple of hands.
We have Keola.
Keola.
Hi, for the County of Kauai, we support the improvements mentioned for expanding the programs at whatever level. The more the better is, in our perspective, best for the program, and increasing the deposit beverage fee to the 10 cents would probably drastically improve redemption. But overall, yeah, more material added to the program. There's a lot that we're getting landfilled or not properly recycled that probably would be captured if it was included in the DBC program. One other one that we did bring up in our back and forth for the task force earlier, but I didn't see mentioned, was in the ADF program. If we can closer look into the program requirements for the county side, County of Kauai has had to give up ADF funds just because we can't comply with the requirements for the buyback program. So that's, if a review of that program can be done, it probably helped County of Kauai a lot with increasing our capacity for making payments and whatnot to our processor. But that's comments we submitted earlier. But we appreciate the work everybody's doing on this and looking at how we can make these programs better. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have Andrew.
All right, thank you, Andy Boyd, County Kauai. I wanted to talk one thing about the EPR definition. I think it's a little misleading saying that we're going to take the costs away from the public. I think that EPR is great for making companies responsible and thinking about the manufacturing process and how they can reduce those impacts. But let's face it, they're going to turn around any cost that they take in on these EPR programs. They're going to turn around and increase the price of their products. So that's a little bit misleading. I'd also like to talk about the bottle caps. I mean, for our High Five program, because we go by weights, the bottle caps add weight to the program, so it gives an inaccurate payback. So that's one of the reasons, or the main reason, I believe that the High Five program doesn't want the caps in there. Secondly, bottle caps, you cannot, like bale them if you're a recycler and you get just caps, and you cannot just bale caps and send them out to be recycled. And thirdly, even when it's the manufacturers that are really pushing this bottle cap, leave the caps on program, and they're not the ones recycling it. And most of the plants and mills that accept these bottles are not set up to separate out the bottle caps and recycle them. So those are my comments. Oh, and finally, on the High Five program, I do agree with the 10 cents. And I think we should also include the wine bottles and spirit bottles in that program, and include milk jugs. Milk jugs are highly recyclable, number 2, natural plastic. And so I believe those should be included in the program as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
I'm not seeing anybody else on our task force. And so at this time, Christine, if you'd like to provide your comments on the lithium batteries, I believe you have.
Okay, so after the presentation by Dr. Michael Cooney, Recycle Hawaii, we just jumped right in there and reached out to him. And we actually submitted an application to Department of Energy under one of the programs similar to what was mentioned. We asked for $5 million. Call to Recycle was a project partner on that. So it was HNEI, Recycle Hawaii, and Call to Recycle. And we got the first round of approval. They asked us to submit a full proposal that would be due by the third week in November. So we were going gangbusters on that. And then we started to learn what Greg Jenkins, he's like the hazardous waste guy who manages those materials for Matson. And we found out what they were doing on Maui, which is basically they're crushing the batteries to make them not batteries, to de-energize them. And so we had to step back because it could be possible that would lead to a better handling method. So in talking to Michael Cooney this morning, what I have to report to the group is that HNEI, using barrel tax funding that they already have, is looking to establish a series of workshops that would include stakeholders. Michael Cooney is going to do an even deeper dive into this. We're going to be looking at product stewardship. You know, this group, it's all well and good what we're doing, but honestly, it's going to be at least another year before anything comes of it. And then it looks pretty much like things are headed to the legislature, and we know what timetable that is. When it comes to lithium-ion batteries, we do not have the opportunity or the luxury of just kind of sitting around and spending that much time. It's extremely dangerous, and the more that we look into it, the worse it is, especially when you talk to the folks at Matson, because they're the ones that are shipping these batteries. There's this whole thing going on with the illegal manifest. So people are taking batteries that no longer should be shipped and putting them in cars and acting as if, you know, this is a new car or something. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So I just wanted to let the group know that that's happening, and that we're looking to have these series of workshops beginning within the next couple months with HNEI. We're talking to Hawaii State Energy Office, and also to Matson as partners, and Recycle Hawaii will be part of that. So having said that much, I don't know where that leaves me as a task force member. Is this a conflict of interest now? I need to just stop talking about lithium ion batteries. I could use some direction there. But one last thing I will say is that, on a call with the White House Intergovernmental Task Force the other day, there's this huge push for right to repair. And what we see is that a right to repair bill would make it a lot easier for us to get access to lithium ion batteries in smaller devices, larger devices as well. So one of the recommendations we would like to make is that this group look at right to repair as legislation that would help both with e-waste and with lithium ion batteries.
Thanks, Christine. We did a quick check around the room. Doesn't seem to be an issue of conflict of interest at this point. We'll take it under advisement though, but thank you for preparing that information for us. It's very interesting. Are there any other comments from our task force members who may have not shared anything with us today? Before we go into our summary of our meeting, we want to make sure that we've gotten all the comments, questions, and observations registered before.
On the bottle caps, right now, it's from the recycling standpoint, the end users will only accept 2% bottle caps. So that's our requirement. But from a local level, if you allow people to leave the caps on, there's always moisture. Sometimes we'll see a half a bottle. I mean, they just throw it in and then we're forced to deal with that liquid at the location. So that's why we don't like caps. And the rate study doesn't include caps.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole.
Thanks. A thought on public education. Yes, and when we're doing things like recycled art contests in schools, we're also creating a cognitive dissonance where we're showing students and the public a set of solutions that's not really working well, and we're encouraging people to buy into a system that they don't have faith in for good reason. We're saying recycle more, and yet we don't have answers about what's happening to the material that heads off island. So I wanted to I guess bring up the complexity with leaning on this public education narrative, and once we teach people to just recycle, everything's going to be okay. That's not the case. And what also does corporate education look like? The corporate stakeholders are perhaps some of the most impactful partners in this, deciding how products are made. They're on the edges of deciding the commodity prices of the different materials that the MRFs are having to deal with. What does it look like to educate some of our corporate partners around the issues Hawaii's dealing with our landfills being too full, with not being able to accommodate this flood of material that's coming in? So I hear almost no one talk about corporate education, and one other addition, seeing that partnership with nonprofits showed up in there. Having run a small nonprofit for several years, that typically looks like nonprofits are responsible for going out and finding funding to do these things on their own, or having a large enough budget to accommodate a state or a county GIA process. So when thinking about partnering with nonprofit education partners, that support of the nonprofits needs to be fleshed out a lot more. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Once again, any other thoughts or comments adding to the solutions conversation? If not, we'll turn back to Tetra Tech for a summary of today's meeting.
Thank you, Ramsey. So some of the discussion points that we've heard throughout our meeting today for the deposit beverage container program is that we need to get away from single-use plastics. We need to promote public education to educate the community on what the program covers, as well as additional education on the contamination. We also need to look at how to repurpose certified redemption centers to collect additional valuable plastics. Someone also mentioned the possibility of implementing an app for curbside collection options for the deposit beverage container. For example, putting containers into a neighbor's bin if they had additional space. There have also been points on raising the deposit fee from 5 cents to 10 cents, as well as the need for an upgraded segregated rate study. There was also mention of the need to seek additional government program and subsidy opportunities, as well as looking into EPR Bill 145A that promotes reuse and allocates funding for recycling infrastructure. Again, there was also mention of need for grants for equipment and convenience centers, and also expanding the program to cover non-deposit glass as well. Some of the problems discussed were the lack of trust in the recycling process. For electronics, Some of the solutions identified were the expansion of the program to include additional electronics, as well as the manufacturing of products to ensure the life cycle of these products. Right to repair legislation was also mentioned, not just for electronics, but also for lithium-ion batteries, as well as the need for corporate education, as well as overall public education on the electronics program, as well as partnerships with nonprofit organizations. Are there any?
I think you covered it all.
Does anyone else from the task force or any community member have any additional summary points that they would like to identify?
Any points of emphasis, feel free to drop it in the chat as well. Christine, I see your hand is raised.
Go ahead, Christine.
Okay, I'm just remembering there's something very important I forgot on the lithium-ion batteries. Hopefully it's not too late to add it. But what we've heard is that Department of Health is taking this position that we can deal with lithium-ion batteries by just packaging them properly and shipping them off that way. And what we're hearing from everybody who's very knowledgeable about that is not going to work because the maritime insurance interests. And if we don't do something to deactivate the batteries here, that it's very likely that the shippers will shut it down and they won't take them, which will bring our transition to clean energy to a screeching halt. So please, Department of Health, if this is true, if this is the position that you're taking, please reconsider that position because it's not supported by experts in the field.
Thank you, Christine.
Christine, I don't know, could you just give me a little bit more information on that? So, I'm not aware of that policy, but a little bit more information, a specific program in the age.
So, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
On the packaging of used lithium-ion batteries.
You said that DOH has taken a specific position. If you don't mind just sending Lane that additional information as he's not aware of that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I mean, again, this is hearsay. So, everyone's talking. There's a lot of conversation right now going on about what is the solution with lithium-ion batteries. And what we've heard is that Department of Health is advocating for a method, I guess it's a standard method for shipping typical hazardous waste out of the state. Like it's good enough for these other hazardous materials, it should be good enough for lithium-ion batteries. But what we're hearing from experts is that no, the batteries really do need to be deactivated. I guess there's concerns about like what kind of program would that be? How much would it cost? Who would roll out the program? Who would monitor? That's a big burden on Department of Health and a heavy lift. But, if in fact the Department of Health is taking that position or moving in that direction, then we would encourage you to rethink that because everything that we're hearing, experts here, the national level, Call to Recycle, insurance people, is no, they do need to be deactivated so that they can be moved safely.
Great, thank you. Nicole, I want to come back to a comment you made earlier. I would just clarify, because in the summary, I didn't hear it as much. But throughout the meeting today, both you and Christine and others have mentioned the importance of, maybe the word's not transparency, but that's what I'm hearing. Transparency as well as authentic and appropriate definitions of terms. Would it be appropriate then that we would look at being more accurate in the way we describe things, or find not only transparency in data, but transparency in definitions and terms as programs progress? Would that be a fair assessment of what you're saying? Mr. Nicole, I think you're muted.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, she said yes in the chat.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. Did not see that.
Yes. cognitive dissonance is real, especially when you're talking with, next generation. And we need to be authentic. Is it a collection program, a redemption program? Are we dealing with, TVs and computers? Are these things actually being recycled? Are they being downcycled into materials that generate microplastics? This stuff really matters. And to me, Hawaii does best when we lead. So that's my message.
Thank you. And with other task force members, it's an opportunity, please, to share your thoughts before we move on to our potential solutions and next steps. We're very efficient today. We've gotten through our meeting agenda fairly quickly, so we still have some time. But if there aren't any other comments on this summary section, then I'd invite our team members to move on to the next steps and action items.
Thank you, Ramsey. So regarding next steps, we will be compiling information received at today's meeting for consideration in the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan update. And similar to what we did for batteries earlier this morning, we will also be summarizing and wrapping up our discussion points on the 3 statewide recycling programs at our next task force meeting, which will cover organics, specifically green waste, food waste, and untreated wood.
Wonderful, Nicole, I did see your hand pop up. So please feel free to share your thoughts.
I was just going to add, I can't recall if in the oral summary offered the request for source reduction to take a priority in the framing of this conversation was jotted down. But I'll just say that again, just in case. I didn't remember hearing it.
Yes, your comment on the framing and the steps for that have been noted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. I think at large, I think we've heard today redefine, reframe, and refocus as underlying concepts in the entire conversation. So thank you for reiterating that. But I think that would be a good way of looking at perhaps creative thinking and creative solutions by reframing, redefining, and refocusing. Is there any other thoughts?
No, I think the tentative date for our next meeting is December 7th. And we'll have another opportunity to dive in further into the potential these state recycling programs, just like we did on batteries. Reuse is obviously part of any integrated solid waste management plan. So it is part of the conversation. It was included into the potential solution categories, which included other reduction activities. That's the name we were using for that category. So it is there. Maybe the starting with the reduction conversation makes the flow a little better, since it does follow the hierarchy. We will take that into consideration.
Get all the comments that were brought in by.
Yes, and so all your written comments as well will be noted. We do transcribe them and take them down, but if anybody else has any last minute thoughts, please chat them, raise your hands. If not, we are at the end of our program.
One hand.
We do have a hand? Yes, Nicole?
Sorry, it's me again. One, I don't understand the implications within the sunshine law of this, but there are several working or advisory group members, myself included, who are on the ground in Hawaii working on waste reduction initiatives, which is why I assume I was invited to be a part of this conversation, and some others as well. So I'm seeing in some of the information presented back to us about the place we live and work in has a lot of gaps, and I don't know, and that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're not here and you're researching that information from afar. If there's opportunity to involve advisory committee members in generating some of that information around the current state and the opportunities in the pipeline, I think that would help a lot. I don't know if you're allowed to pull on us for that information, but I mean, we're kind of like, I would assume that would be a value of us being a part of this. So throwing that out there, that I would at least be willing to help provide more information to be presented.
Should probably look into that, but I think the intention is when you're doing something in the course of your normal duties and tasks, different than doing something for the task force is where the sunshine law lies. So if you're conducting your business as you normally would, and that means engaging others who are doing the same, I think that's okay. Right, so we would need to look into that though. It's when you set aside a specific time and energy to discuss task force activities outside of the task force meetings. I believe that's when we run afoul of the law. But I think we'll look into that.
Yeah. Just to add on, yes, so yeah, we'll do a thorough rating from the sunshine side of things, but I understand what you're getting at, Nicole. And yes, I think that would be a positive. So thank you for volunteering your services. And once we figure out that we're completely clear of sunshine concerns, we can include you in the development of our fact sheets and solutions memo, that kind of thing. I have no problem with that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Or do you have your hand up again?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
We're good? Okay,
yeah. Oh, are we there? Okay, I just want to thank everybody. Actually, and maybe going back to the start of the meeting, when we were doing the introductions, I guess, like I've, for years I've introduced myself as planner for DOH, but right now I'm temporarily assigned to the solid waste coordinator position, so formerly on Mike's position. Mike left our program at the start of this month, October. He's still within DOH, and he's still gonna continue participation in our ISWM planning process. So just wanted to clarify that. But as far as this meeting, I want to thank everybody, our task force, our public, staff, team, for all the work and your time participating in planning the meetings. Like I'm always kind of focused or concerned with providing adequate discussion time. And so, I'm surprised as anybody that we're, coming in at 11:20. But going back to sort of Nicole's question is like, as far as sunshine, we're okay because we're not taking votes. We're not voting on bills or anything like that. So, we're open, essentially. We're open. So, Nicole, anybody else out there has any information that, you forgot about, whatever, please send it to me. We'll distribute it to the team and it will get documented, properly as part of the meeting process. And that's about it. Just really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, speaker as well. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you. In person. Terry.
Right, unless there's anything else? Go ahead, all right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Be well.
Yeah.
Aloha, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.